All right, how's it going, everyone? So this is a follow-up video to lifting the 2021 Dodge Ram 1500 four-wheel drive. I have it set up on the alignment rack. Now this is after I've driven it a couple miles to jounce the suspension back and forth to get everything a little bit settled. It is a spacer lift, so theoretically the springs should be settled as much as they're going to be, and this should be the final ride height. But anytime you have the suspension components apart, stuff can get out of place. So it's a good idea to drive it a little bit, and then you can do the alignment. So I've only driven it around 5 miles, not a ton. So here's where I'm starting with. Now this is a live axle rear truck, so our thrust angle is pretty straight. We can't really adjust that too much, so we'll leave that be. Our next thing that we need to do is go through and adjust our camber and caster. Those are both done with the same adjustment points. Conveniently, before I started, I went through and made sure that I marked all the eccentrics in the locations that they were stock with the paint pen, and get it so that you can see it. So we're not too far off. This is only a 2-inch spacer lift, so there's really not a lot that we should have to move theoretically, because it's only lifting it just a little bit. The spacer being the collar for the shock absorber strut assembly right there. So what we'll do is we'll adjust the caster and camber with these eccentrics. Now to adjust camber, we got to adjust both of those eccentrics, front and rear, for the lower control arm equally. To get our caster changed, then we adjust one at a time, and usually it's a good idea to follow the prompts on the machine, because it'll have you typically rotate the rear a little bit and then rotate the front the opposite direction to get a caster adjustment. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to do both at the same time. I'm going to do my best to get it as straight as possible. The left side looks okay, the right side does need just a slight tweak to get it in. It's just on the edge of being out of spec. After we do that, we can then double check our caster. Our total caster is pretty good, so we might not have to mess with it much, and then we can tackle the toe and we'll finish this alignment up. With these eccentrics, it's a good idea to just loosen up just slightly, and then with our wrench we can move it one way or the other. I like to do it one at a time, that way you don't run the risk of the arm flopping the other direction and you going really far out. So we're just going to make small tweaks and try to bring the camber and caster in little by little without, disturbing anything else too far. So we just need to make it slightly positive, so as we're moving this eccentric we can get it in just a little bit more positive. So I'm going to start with that on the front, because I've gone from 7/10 of a degree to 4/10 of a degree, which is within spec. And then I'm going to move the rear a little bit. Hopefully I can then match the other side camber so that we're as even as we can possibly be. Alright, so we're pretty good. I've adjusted camber and caster with the eccentrics on the lower control arms to the best that I can get both within spec. The eccentrics have about 2 degrees of play that they can move. You can only get it within certain tolerances. So what I've done is I've gone back through and hit that button right there, which is to re-verify caster, and that sweeps the caster left and right. And then that way I can verify the measurements after I've started it up and moved it left and right. So now I'll go back through and adjust toe, and then we'll finish up the alignment. So we're just going to do our toe adjustment here by adjusting the outer tie rod to the inner tie rod. We have a 24mm locking nut, and then this is a 17mm flat on the inner tie rod to be able to adjust it up and down. So just a 17 and a 24 will be our final adjustment, or final hardware that we need to adjust the camber eccentrics. Those are 24mm as well, so not a lot of tools needed for this alignment. So the jam nut loose, we can then go through and adjust the tie rod as needed. We will need to make sure that we keep this tie rod joint as straight as possible after we've tightened everything down. So we'll go through and do the right side, double check everything, torque it down. So I've done my final toe adjustment after another caster sweep, and our toe left and right is pretty good. Our total toe is nice and straight. Our total caster and total camber should counteract our road crown, so the truck should theoretically drive nice and straight. And we didn't change too much in thrust angle. We actually lost a little bit. It's kind of wavering back and forth. Again, nothing in the rear. This truck is adjustable, so we'll leave it at that. So now the last step would be just double check, make sure everything's torqued, take off the alignment target heads, and then test drive it and make sure everything's straight. I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video, and I'll see you in the next one.